What's this like?
I was just telling him it was a little weird, but not weird at all at the same time. So that's the best way to describe it.
Where are you at health-wise? Like, where are you on, I know it's a long path, but kind of what are you able to do and where are you on the path?
Right now, I can do a lot of stuff. I've been running, I've been shooting. I think it's at the stage where I can do a lot, but it's tricky because you can, with this injury, what I've learned is you get to a point where you can, do a lot of these things, but the tendon is not, strong enough to stand up to it like it normally would be able to, like doing basketball activities. So it's a long period of like being stuck right here where you don't want to get carried away with what you think you could be doing because it feels good doing a lot of that stuff. You just got to kind of stay in the moment. So right now, that's just where it's at. I'm able to do a lot more activity, but still, building the strength up and, getting that tendon back to taking its normal shape.
I know you're taking this year, but is there any scenario that you could foresee, any scenario in the entire world, one seed going into the playoffs, anything where you would say, screw it, I'm playing?
I don't plan on it. I feel like if the team's a one seed going into the playoffs, then they probably got it. So I just want to be as healthy as I can possibly be and be 100% confident in it and, be able to do all of the movements and everything that it takes to be on the NBA court and, test out of everything that I need to test out of to make sure that I'm ready to go. And at that point, whenever that point is, obviously I'll have a decision to make.
What are you going to do during training camp? Like, are you going to be there, like, what's your role at training camp for this team?
I'll be there early in the morning to get my stuff done. That's not team stuff like my rehab and to try to get my training in, just so that I can get that out the way and then still be there or be able to watch and go through all the stuff that the team is going through so I can know the offense, I can know the defensive principles, I can just hear the language and everything that's being spoken over the team. And like Chauncey said, I guess I'm going to be like another assistant coach. But whatever I can be to the team at this point, that's what I'll be. But I'll definitely be there. I'll be around.
What's been the most difficult part of this process for you?
I would say, even when I've had injuries, when things have come up, I've always been able to do something about it. And I think this is the first time that it's an injury that, you can come back from, but you can't do anything about it. You got to let it take the time that it takes.
Dame, I know there's not much players usually have to say or can say about ownership, but I feel like this is a little bit of a different situation because you've been here for such a long time and you've been such a face of the organization. Have you had any kind of interactions with Tom, the incoming owner, or do you kind of have any thoughts on just the ownership change and just that part of the franchise right now?
I think it's been something that has been a discussion for some time, so I think everybody knew that it was to come at some point. I haven't had much interaction at all, but I'm sure there will be. And when it does, I'm sure I'll learn whatever I need to learn. But at this point, I've just been focused on getting reconnected and trying to get healthy.
Have you reached out to anybody who's had this injury in the past? Obviously, you saw it with Wes and all that, but just to the road ahead, and have they given you any advice about what's ahead?
Yeah, I spoke to KD. I spoke to Rudy Gay, DeJounte Murray. Who else? Wes. Me and Wes talked about it every day. Wes came and worked my camp in Arizona this summer, so every day we talked about it and went over stuff. My PT that I've used this whole time has done 40 or 50 Achilles repairs, so he's pretty comfortable with it, and he knows his stuff. So I've learned a lot. What not to do when things worked out best, And also, every couple of weeks I've been going and seeing my surgeon to make sure everything is right and what the next step should be. So that's really been it. It's just making sure I'm listening and speaking to those people who've experienced it and people who, like my surgeon, who've done these repairs over and over, and my PT who's been involved in a lot of these rehab processes as well. So that's really been it.
Consistent message that they've given you, like patience or something like that,
I would say the most consistent has just been that, don't try to be the guy that does it in record time, because it takes what it takes. And usually when people return to form is because they took the proper amount of time, and they didn't fall for the, I feel good, I can do it, when a lot of times you feel good and, it's still a few layers to the injury that, you got to work through. And that's, getting that force and being able to do a lot of the things that, you can only know if it's working or not on a basketball court, and then to, run those types of tests and know that it's all the way right. And that usually takes a little bit longer. So I would say that's one thing they all said that they all had in common.
You had mentioned at the rally about Scoot and being part of his journey and what the way you feel like he can grow. And obviously he's going to be out for a while. Have you thought about kind of maybe being with him or spending time with him as you guys are both rehabilitating, since you were both kind of won't be able to do on-court stuff for a while?
Yeah, I mean, neither one of us going to be on the court for a little bit, so it'll definitely create that window of opportunity for us to have a lot more dialogue during that time. Even if he was on the court, I'm going to still be around, and, it's breaks and stuff like that, and different guys getting reps, and he's on the side where I would, definitely be able to have some type of conversation or put stuff in his ear. But now this puts it, even more of an opportunity where we're going to be around each other, doing this. I'm rehabbing, and he's going to be rehabbing and trying to get back to full health. But I'm not going to be like all in his ear, like I just know everything. But, it's a lot that I can share with him from experience. And as a young point guard, I know the desire. I've been there to, want more for yourself and want to grow, want to prove yourself. I've been through that process. I've been through the struggles. I've been through the high moments. When you want to jump out there and you want to show what you can do. I've been through all of those things. I know what it's like off the floor when you got, people saying what you need to do and what's expected. And I know that I could, help take some of that weight off his shoulders by just sharing information that I know is a fact. And it'll be a lot of opportunity to do that now to start the season.
Damian, your last season, when you were on the way out, you mentioned that things were kind of in flux, and you didn't really know the last year you were here.
Oh.
Things were kind of in flux, and you didn't really kind of know where your space was, and the team was incredibly young. Obviously, you were further along in your career, and you kind of looked there and said, this isn't for me right now. What's different about these guys right now? How are they looking at the game? Because there's a couple guys that were here that when you were here previously, where have you seen them kind of grow? Where has the maturation kind of been, and where do you kind of look at all of that right now, and how not only you fit in next year, but where these guys are right now?
I think the main thing I would say is when I was traded, like a lot came back from me being traded. So I was traded for Drew, and now Drew is also on the team. So I would say that, a lot came back from that trade and, all of the trades that took place. And also a couple years went by. And I think, for a lot of the guys, like Shea was here my last year, he was a rookie. Tease was here, Jeremy was here. Can't think off the top of my head who else might have been here. But like I said, it's been a couple years, and I think the growth has taken place on the floor, where they had a few years to just be on the court and learn and figure it out and compete and, get that experience. And I think that was just a great window of opportunity for that to happen, for that growth. And then now somebody like Drew being added to the roster, then you add myself back to the roster, I think it puts the team right in that space where you're seeing a lot of the better teams in the league and the teams on the rise now is like they have a young core, a lot of young talent. They have depth, and it's some vets in there with experience that can get it done. And I look at this team as a team that's right in that space.
Tom Dundon and his group have said that they intend to keep the team in Portland, but until an arena deal gets done, there's going to be people who fear the worst. Why does this team matter so much to Portland, and why do you think it's important that the team does stay here for the rest of eternity?
I think the Trailblazers mean so much to Portland because it's the biggest show in town that the city is attached to. The passion that the fans have for the team, for the history of the team. It means a lot. Even my time here, when I wasn't on the team, the first 11 years that I was on the team, the connection that I've even built with the community has just meant a lot. You see how far it goes when I'm in these places, when I'm at the Boys and Girls Club and when I'm at the schools, and that connection means a lot to them. The Trailblazers mean a lot to them. So it's easy for me to see why, it's important, or it would be fear that the team wouldn't be here. And I'm someone who supports that. I came back here because I wanted to not only play for the Trailblazers, but I wanted to be in Portland, and I understand the importance of that. So I'm with them. Hopefully that's the case.
What
There's
are your
a few
kind of
NBA players who are doing the GM at college thing. Can you tell us about how that came to be for you? What you envision being able to actually do, especially now that you're not going to play this season? Steph went to Davidson, put those guys through a workout. Do you see that in the future?
For me, this is something we've talked about, I would say, for maybe 2.5 years now. And it wasn't even like a thing yet. I was talking to them about it just because I wanted to help the program. I spent 4 years there, and I want to see the program do well. And they have been struggling a little bit, so I wanted to help out in some way. And it became a conversation, and then it became official. And really something that I care about is just mentorship, and helping push the game in the right direction, and help a lot of these younger athletes, high school, even in college, learn to do things the right way. And that's why I started my elite camp. Is more of a mentorship program of not only working with them on the court, but also off the court. And it would just be my goal to run a similar program through Weber State, where even the best players can go there. 4-star, 5-star players could go there, but what they would be getting by going through the program would be something, that can't be bought, and encourage better things for them as individuals, and just for the game of basketball. So that's really the goal that I have with, taking that role on at Weber.
There's going to be a scenario where you're like going to a high school game, calling the staff, listen, there's a sophomore, we got to get on him right now.
Yeah, I mean, I could. If I saw a sophomore that made me feel that way, I definitely could do it. So, yeah, I mean, it's possible.
Dame, what are your initial thoughts and impressions of Hansen from having watched him at Summer League and then whatever time you've been able to be around him this summer?
I think he can really play. I think the first thing that stuck out to me was like his feel for the game. He just knows how to play. He knows the right pass to make. When he gets the ball in the paint, it's like he knows how to find that space to get a quality shot off. He's physical. And I like his personality. His personality off the floor. You can tell he has personality on the floor. And to me, that just shows, he has confidence. And that's something that he's going to need, coming to America, having to, learn English, and then having to, play in the best league in the world. That's something that you're going to need, and I think he's going to need that. So, when I saw him, those things stood out to me.
And
And Dame, so as much as an injury is a physical issue, it affects your head game too, between the years. And so coming back to Portland at such a consequential time, like, what are you doing around Portland to fill your cup? Like, is it nice being home? What are you doing to, take care of take care of your head as long as you're with your injuries too?
My head has been great. I think one thing that people here know about me is that I'm stubborn. I don't. Some people may have a concern about it, but I'm honestly not concerned. I know that I'm willing to take the ride that I need to take to get back healthy, and I will. And once I do, and we revisit the conversation, people are gonna be like, they'll believe me, and I'll get healthy, and I'll be right. And that's just the bottom line for me. In my head, I have days where I get, frustrated that I just can't go out there and do a basketball workout, but I don't get discouraged, about it. It is what it is. It'll be another chapter that gives me the opportunity to show people that, this is not a talent or none of that. It's just it's internal. I have something in me that I just don't think everybody has, and I'll show that once again. And as far as the other stuff, I just see it also as an opportunity to not have to be so high strung about winning a game or all of those things. Like, I can be invested in the team and do everything I need to do. But it's also a time for me to be in the community. With my respect program, we reconnected with a few of the schools, and we might add a few middle schools, because there's a lot of things taking place in middle schools and single parent households and underserved communities here as well. So I'll be, taking a lot more opportunities to, pick up some of those things that, I still continue when I wasn't here, but now that I'm back living here, I'll be able to be more present in them. So a lot more of those programs that I've always done, I'll be probably doing a little bit more with those, and then also a few other things that, I've been planning for a few years now that'll, have a major impact on, the Portland community.